Morning. Morning. Hi. Hi. Happy Friday. All right. Welcome to Colonial Experience. My name's Rick. I'll be your guide today. I usually start off with a little background of St. Augustine. The oldest permanent European settlement in North America. But our story begins on August 28, 1565. That's when our founder, Spanish Admiral Pedro Menendez, first set sight on our location. In the Catholic calendar, August 28th is the feast day of the patron St. Augustine. All right. He comes ashore just north of here. Did you see the 206-foot tall stainless steel statue? Just north of here is the mission Nombre de Dios, the name of God. He's got about 600 people with him, soldiers and sailors. He's got a couple priests to conduct mass, convert people to Catholicism, some doctors. But he's got blacksmith, locksmith, rope makers, leather makers, shoemakers, brewmasters, women and children, everything necessary to create that permanent settlement. The Spanish had previously brought pigs and cows to the New World. Menendez brings the horse. The Timucuan Indians are here. They'd never seen a horse before. So when the conquistador came down the boat ramp on top of the horse, the Indians, they thought it was one animal, but had two heads. They'd just never seen one before. Now, I'm from Virginia. We grew up studying Jamestown, the English colony, 1607. This is 42 years before Jamestown. But it really all begins in 1492 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Right. And he has three ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. All right. Well, he's looking for a way to get to Asia. He thinks I can go west. So he really puts the boats in the ocean. He literally runs into the Caribbean. All right. He knows he's not in China. Thinks maybe I'm in India. So he called the people Indians. And he started claiming islands for Catholic Spain. Spain got into that empire building thing. They sent other explorers. Ponce de Leon discovered Florida, 1513. Founded a place of flowers or full of flowers, so he called it La Florita. And then Spanish claimed Mexico and most of South America and southwest United States. The English got involved. They claimed, I look north here, they claimed the east coast of the United States, and the French were in Canada. All right. So the Spanish start bringing shiploads of gold and silver back to Spain. They're coming up the Gulf Stream here, and they're making King Philip II of Spain like the richest guy in the world. But English and French pirates start robbing the galleons of the gold and the silver. So King Philip hires his good buddy, our founder, Pedro Menendez, to protect the galleons. All right, 1. 2, convert people to Catholicism. And 3, they found out French Huguenots, Protestants, have settled up in Jacksonville on the St. Johns River. Mission 3 was to get the French Huguenots out of Catholic Florida. Menendez arrives, the French have the same idea, so they immediately try to attack St. Augustine. But a storm takes their ship out to sea, 3 ships, and they're shipwrecked south of here. Dividing the French forces, Menendez says this would be a good time to go up to the French Fort Caroline and take over the fort. He eventually gets there first thing in the morning, gives orders to kill all the men, kills 62 men. All right, they hang them. All right, they rename Fort Caroline San Mateo. The French are out in North Florida. All right, now these shipwrecked French sailors, Menendez catches up to them at the southern inlet of the Matanzas River. This is the northern inlet right here. Southern inlet's about 14 miles south of here. Menendez goes down there. The French don't have a boat, so they surrender. But he still takes them 10 at a time across the inlet into the sand dunes and kills about 200 of them. Puts them all to the sword, basically wiping all the French out of Catholic Florida. Menendez and the Spanish will be here for about 200 years, from about 1565 to 1763. And then the British will come in, take over Florida by treaty for about 20 years during our Revolutionary War. When the British lose the Revolutionary War, Florida will go back to Spain for a second Spanish period. And then the United States will buy Florida from the Spanish in 1821. So it's going to go Spanish, British, a second Spanish period, and then the United States. All right. There is a statue of Pedro Menendez, our founder here in St. Augustine. It was a gift from his hometown of Avila, Spain, in 1972. It's down by the Leitner Museum, which is just kind of west of the Castle Monica Hotel and just south of Flagler College. If you go down there and you see the statue, he's wearing the traditional Spanish military dress. He's got the stockings on and the high skirt. Okay, it was the higher your rank, the higher your skirt. All right. So if you go down there and you see the statue, you'll probably be glad Menendez didn't get another promotion. All right. Now we do have 2 acres of property here. We can go on a little walking tour. We love our live oaks. This is just coming back really good. It was. They lose some leaves in the winter.
Get off my shoes!
Live oaks, we love them here in Florida. They are protected, but their root system sits up kind of high, and they're usually intertwined with another live oak. Now, if you look over the roof there, there's a live oak in our music venue. They think maybe one of the biggest and oldest in St. Augustine. Now, that root system is supposed to prevent them from falling over during storms or high winds. It's supposed to prevent them. All right. But, all right, well, we can go on the tour here. Spanish did not have the slavery the way the British colonies did of Virginia and Georgia and the Carolinas. So escaped slaves would leave the British colonies and come into Florida as early as 1690s. And they called it the Southern Underground Railroad. And they'd gain their freedom as long as they did 3 things. They converted to Catholicism. They served 4 years in the Spanish military, and they were baptized with a Christian name. But this is 70 years before the British come into Florida, and 170 years before our American Civil War. African Americans gained freedom here in Florida and St. Augustine. The oldest African American town in Florida is right here in St. Augustine. It's called Fort Mosaic. It's about a mile north of here. It was our first line of defense from land invasion from the north. It was burnt down by the founder of Georgia, James Oglethorpe, like in 1740, rebuilt 1742, and now it's part of the Florida State Park System. But it's spelled M-O-S-E, but it's pronounced Mosaic. Fort Mosaic, first African American community right here in St. Augustine. Every town would have a blacksmith. A blacksmith basically heats up iron, and when you heat up iron, you're able to bend it and shape it and make all the tools for your community. It can be farm tools, or garden tools, kitchen utensils, pots and pans. If you're a wealthy homeowner, a blacksmith might make a decorative item like this for inside your house. Black is iron, to smite is to strike, a blacksmith is striking iron. By mass, iron is the most common element in the world. Both the Earth's inner and outer crust are made mostly out of iron. We just don't have any here in Florida. We've got flowers. Menendez brought 6 tons of iron in the hulls of his ships, and anytime a ship was to resupply, St. Augustine are required to bring iron with them. But when you heat it up to about 1800 degrees, it kind of turns red. And then from hot to hottest, it will go red to orange to yellow to white. When it's white hot, that's when it melts. That's like lava. That's like 2,750 degrees. They say it's best to work with when it's kind of an orangish yellow color. But I can show you around the blacksmith shop here. This is just a quenching bucket. This is a bale of water to cool down whatever it is you're working with. A sledgehammer if I had to bend something real heavy and thick. This is sharpening stuff. If you want to sharpen a knife or a hatchet or a hammer or a shovel rather, you use the sharpening stuff. Most of the blacksmith work is done with the hammer and the anvil. If I want to straighten out a piece of iron, I'd use this end. If maybe I want to curve a chain, I would use this end. The gloves here to protect us from the heat. 1800 degrees, burn you real fast. A vise, you need to stabilize a smaller piece of iron, you use the vise. This is beeswax. The Europeans brought honeybees to North America around the 1600s. We know we have bees to pollinate our fruits and our vegetables. The blacksmith uses beeswax. You put this on the iron, it creates a film and prevents the iron from rusting. All right. This forge here is called a Mediterranean forge. Heats up to about 1800 degrees. Here's some tongs here to hold the pieces of iron. Now these are bellows. Now Every blacksmith will have an apprentice. An apprentice, he learns the job from the blacksmith. He learns how to be a blacksmith himself. But his number one job is to keep the fire going. All right. Now, apprentice starts about the age of 8. All right. He works 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. We give him Sunday off and no school. The apprentice learns to make less detailed tools, and he becomes a journeyman. And as a journeyman, you start getting paid for your time and your effort. All right. To become a master blacksmith, you must first create your masterpiece. This block with all its detail would certainly qualify as a masterpiece. Once you create this, you become a master blacksmith, and you're able to open up your own shop. All right. But here, that's really just kind of red right now. All right, just starting out. But I can bend it and shape it for sure. I've got about 2 to 3 minutes where I can bend it, shape it, before it cools down. See, I can bend it. Ooh, this needs to be a lot hotter. I can bend it here, all right, but I can't bend it here. All right. Now, it's already starting to cool down, so I make sure I strike while the iron's hot. All right. When it cools down, I put it back in the forge to heat up. Now, I've been watching that show Forged in Fire on the History Channel. Yeah, and I was making a little dagger a couple months ago. And they tell you the first thing you do is you knock the embers off. All right. And the reason being is I was making my dagger, I was creating a point, and the ember came up, tink, hit me right below the eye. All right, scabbed up for a couple days, but it'll burn you quick. All right. Now I can make my hook here. Years ago, when we first opened, one of the guys made this ladle. All right, pretty good. Now this is the piece I was just working with. All right, there's my hook. All right. There's my hook. All right. Put it back in here. All right. Now when I'm finished working with it, I put the beeswax on it to prevent it from rusting. All right. I put some of this on my truck. Whoa. Whoa. Like magic. Oh my God. Whoa. So, and then when I want to cool it down, I put it in the quenching bucket. It cools down pretty fast. A young girl at tour a couple weeks ago, she says, "Is that water from colonial times?" I said, "I don't know. It's starting to look it. It cools down pretty fast." No, that's fine. Okay, I can't touch it up here. Certainly, way too hot. All right. But I don't want to have too many pieces of iron in here because it'll just burn. It will burn away. So that's, I guess, where the expression, you don't want to have too many irons in the fire. It's basically oyster shells. You eat the oyster, you keep the shell. Eventually, when you have enough shells, you heat them up, it cleans them, and it creates a lime, which is like a stickum. And you put, or an adhesive, you put the oyster shells and the lime in a bucket and mix it with sand and water. And you create your tabby, and then you have these wooden forms or cradles. You pour the tabby in there. It takes about a day to dry and harden. And when you do, then you take the forms up, you lift them up to here, and you make some more tabby, and you pour it in there. Once it dries, you take all the forms off, boom, and you got your fence. And if you look all over St. Augustine, you realize it's not thousands of oyster shells. It's probably into the millions. The Spanish got this idea from Morocco, North Africa, and they brought it here to Florida. Now you'll also see it in Georgia and South Carolina, because when James Oglethorpe attacked, 1740, he saw tabby. He liked the idea, and he took the technology back north, so you'll see it in South Carolina and Georgia as well. It doesn't burn, and the termites can't eat it. But this is tabby construction. This is coquina. This is what the fort's built out of. All right, it's basically oyster shell and clam shell. Been in the earth thousands of years. It creates almost like a limestone. The quarry for the Coquina is over on Anastasia Island, where the St. Augustine Amphitheater is today. It was Spanish engineers that designed the fort. The Spanish soldiers and Cuban prisoners were the labor for the fort. Now, when you first expose Coquina to the air, it's kind of yellowish, all right, but it's really easy to work with. So the labor used pickaxes and saws to put it into rectangular blocks. They put it on barge across the river, and they built the fort. They say in the hot Florida sun, took 30 years to build the fort, finished around 1696. The fort is 30 feet tall and 17 feet wide. It was first attacked in 1702 by an Englishman named James Moore, governor of South Carolina. He came down, he started throwing 8-pound cannonballs at the fort. And they believe they only found out at this time the cannonballs would not crack the Coquina. The Coquina absorbed the cannonballs. It just kind of displaced the oyster shell and the clam shell and just kind of stuck in there. Moore said it was like putting a steak knife into a block of cheese. So Moore would bomb the fort all day, and they said at the end of the day, the fort looked like a chocolate chip cookie. At night, the Spanish would come out, they'd take the cannonballs out of the wall, and they'd shoot them back at the British the next day. All right. And they had some ingenious ideas. They'd heat up the cannonballs and shoot them at the wooden ships, and you catch the ship on fire. Sometimes they'd connect 2 cannonballs with a chain, and they'd come out like this, and they hit the mast of the ship and destroy the ship that way. After 2 months, Moore ran out of food, ran out of cannonballs, and went back to South Carolina, and they found him derelict of his duties. He is one of the guys who burnt down St. Augustine. He burnt down 1702, so we have no buildings that predate 1702. But once we had the fort, no one was ever able to take us by military. It was invented by the Portuguese, mid-14th century, to kind of go up and down the coast of Africa, and eventually around the southern tip of Africa, all the way to India. It sits up kind of high, so it doesn't bottom out in shallow rivers. It had advanced rudder for its time for improved steering. These 3 masts have the Latin sail, the triangular sail, which the Europeans got from the Arabs, which would allow them to tack or sail into the wind. They go about 4 knots, which is about 5 miles per hour, go about 90 to 100 miles in a day. It took about 2 to 3 months to cross the ocean. They would get 50 people on this. All right. The Nina and the Pinta were caravels. Columbus's flagship with Santa Maria was a carrack. That's one size up. That's about 100 feet. The negatives, not much room for food, water. The food would be a beef jerky. Basically, dried beef. Wouldn't be any real vitamin C for the immune system. Fruits or vegetables, so scurvy was an issue. Chapped lips and the swollen gums. You have to make sure you have plenty of water. You'll die of thirst before you'll die of starvation. You start drinking bad water, dysentery, where you have to use the bathroom all the time. You end up dying of dehydration. But again, this is how most of the people came over in the New World. These planks were a little wider than previous ships, and they put tar in the inside there to prevent it from leaking and sinking. All right. But yeah, that's 50 people on there, and they'd stay mostly up on the deck the whole time. Down in the hull would be your food, your water, and some iron, usually used as ballast. Now, when the British came in, they completed the lower level. It's mostly offices during the British occupation. When the British were defeated, second Spanish period, a guy named Sanchez did the upper level. That's where our offices are today. When the Florida Historical Society took it over, they felt best to preserve it. It's all Coquina. They're going to cover it with stucco, and they painted it pink. And then even in the inside, they put some drywall there, just to preserve it. You're welcome to go around and look inside. There's some There's an antique, there's a Colonial Kitchen, some antique furniture, some photographs, some maps. You're welcome to go in there. And there's water right here if you're thirsty. But you're welcome to go in there, look around. It's not haunted. Alright. Some people say they've seen a couple headless mannequins before, but I think daytime you'll be alright. But feel free to look around.
Look, on the table. You want to see some alligator?
No, they're eating me.
Oh, look, a turtle too.
They're eating me.
They're eating you? Oh, my alligator.
Don't touch. Oh.
Don't touch. Please don't touch.
This is how they load the cargo. All right, like onto the caravel ships. The Greeks invented the pulleys. That's one pulley, 2 pulleys,
That one's hard.
1, 2, 3 pulleys.
I could barely.
Oh, I know. Now this is all leverage, tension. This is how they load the cargo, the gold and the silver. One pulley, all 50 pounds. I could probably get it, but I'll probably throw my back out. Okay, I can get that. All right. But look at it with 2 pulleys. Give it a try. Ready? Look at that. Good job, guys. 2 pulleys, and then 3 pulleys. It gets even easier. All right. This guy in the big hat, he's a local archaeologist. He's still active on local things.
I feel like this only has like some.
Now the Spanish used to have the river on kind of a grid system. So if there was a ship in the river, they'd adjust the angle of the barrel to hit the ship. Usually 4 guys reload the cannon. Have to be well disciplined, well trained, because sometimes you're coming under fire while loading the cannon. Now here's our math question. Rule of thumb was half as much gunpowder as the weight of the cannonball. So the 3-pound cannonball, you put in 1.5 pounds of gunpowder. Now that cannon over there, that's an 8-pound cannonball. How much gunpowder? You know, they don't even need a calculator. All right. There's an old saying: you got to keep your powder dry. If this gets moist, it kind of clumps up, and the cannon doesn't work very well. There you go. Now, this is a slow burning fuse. I found it's easier to light it. I found this on archaeological dig. I use this to light the fuse here. So a Bic lighter. We'll give it a try. All right, I'll say, Fuego de Cañón!